Into your music and podcast edition of Start Your Sunday. Glad you are starting your Sunday with us. Actually, it is just me, Harrison Vapnek, here. Not in Columbia, Missouri, not in Boca Raton, Florida. I'm actually in Chicago, Illinois, here at O'Hare Airport. Got a bit of a layover between flights between Los Angeles and going back to Missouri, so had a little bit of time to put together a podcast. It's just past 6:30 a.m. Central Time. This is certainly the earliest edition of Start Your Sunday. But hey, it'll be a little quick episode. Got a couple segments, and we will get going. But I'm going to start with this. So, in just this weird, terrible year we've had with things like deaths and wildfires and a pandemic and unemployment out of the roof and protests and civil injustice and a high-stress election, in the world we've kind of lacked like a feel-good story or just some kind of history where everyone can like kind of rally behind, at least most people. And yesterday, it was a pretty quiet day of college football. Usually that Saturday after Thanksgiving, the Friday after Thanksgiving, it's just so much action and a lot of noise and the rivalries, but we really didn't have that yesterday. It was a quiet day in college football, but somehow it was one of the most historic days in the 151-year history of one of my favorite sports, and that's college football. And it happened to be occurring in the place where we record this show usually, Columbia, Missouri, home of the University of Missouri Tigers. But the story isn't the University of Missouri Tigers today, even though they did have an impressive victory. The story is Sarah Fuller. And so, for those who don't usually know me, football, well, if you're an avid listener of the show, which we appreciate all of you, football is my favorite form of entertainment in the world. But one of the more under-the-radar things I highly enjoy are movies, and specifically in this case, rom-coms. I know it's not the typical demographic, but I'll connect the two in just a second. So last night, or I guess a couple of hours ago, on my flight from LA to Chicago, I turned on a movie I heard about recently from a friend that really couldn't have been more relevant than it is today. And the movie is She's the Man. It's a movie from 2006 starring Amanda Bytes. And it's basically about a girl being left off a soccer team because she was a girl and her goal was to eventually prove everyone wrong and prove she could play with the boys, and she pretended that she was her brother, and there was some romance involved. And I don't want to get super into it, even though it is a certainly good movie and worth the watch. And there were so many just stereotypes in there about like girls can't play with the guys, they'll never be better than us, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Sarah Fuller just lived this out in real life. Watching that sequence of events yesterday felt like a movie. I don't know Sarah Fuller's background. I don't know if she was treated differently growing up because of how great of an athlete she is, and if she ever wanted to play for a boys' team at some point, or something like that. But that stuff happens. Sarah Fuller made history yesterday. Playing in the SEC as a woman. Playing football in the SEC as a woman. The SEC is a conference known for their phrase, "It just means more." It just means more. It is written on the side of the SEC headquarter building. This story means more than any attention it will or ever can get. Sarah Fuller, what she did yesterday, basically became a pioneer of the football world. I'm a 19-year-old young adult male. I have no idea what it's like to grow up the way Sarah Fuller and hundreds of thousands of other girls grow up feeling intimidated or feel inferior to boys in sports. But that game yesterday gave me chills. And the fact that she can prove and was able to prove that any girl can do what she did yesterday is quite frankly on the same level as what Jackie Robinson did back in the civil rights movement. Back to the movie. This was made, 14 years ago, 2006. So yeah, 14 years ago. And there are many similar films out there, I'm sure, but I'm just specifying on this one because I saw it. And it's just the stereotypes in there were just so real. And it's just stuff that happens, things that you see. And, I mentioned it was 14 years ago, but it's incredible it's actually taken this long for something like this to happen in sports, seeing a woman play in a Power 5 conference, even though it's kicker. I'm going to keep it on a more positive note, even with the stereotypes and all of that, the things that are still real. But staying on the positive note, it's one of the most positive days, one of the most proudest days for any sports fan or any college football fan or any just male or female in general in the world, because they can just see the movement that's happening. Like, this is the new normal in sports. Like, this is the sports world that we're going to become, if you like it or not. Because this world is a whole lot better and a whole lot more fun, and it's more open toward everybody. And for those who are saying, like, what the Vanderbilt situation was a publicity stunt, just shut up. Please. This is history. Was it a publicity stunt when Jackie Robinson was signed to the Brooklyn Dodgers in the 1950s? Were there people in the 1950s questioning if it was a publicity stunt? Of course there were. Are there people in 2020 questioning if the Sarah Fuller starting a kicker was a publicity stunt? Of course there are. And those people are being left off the greatest movement in sports in my lifetime. If you just can't appreciate this, then you need to look yourself in the mirror and ask why you even watch sports to begin with. Because it doesn't get more powerful than this. And just to any girl out there, I'm just, in the words of what Sarah Fuller said yesterday in the post-game presser, her words, I just want to tell all the girls out there that you can do anything you set your mind to. You really can. And if you have that mentality all the way through, you can do big things. Sarah Fuller, you have done big things. And it is, I mentioned earlier, it is the biggest movement I have ever seen in sports, and I think the most important, because this is where it's heading. And I mentioned the movie that I watched a couple hours ago. It feels like a movie, what I just saw in sports, and this is what sports is all about. And it's even emotional thinking about of just how great and how powerful that was. And I'm excited to see more and more come in football, because this is just the story, and all of this is awesome. Also, the people who are criticizing the kickoff have clearly never heard of a mortar kick before. That was designed to take a tough bounce in Missouri to field that ball. Vanderbilt was down like 20-0 when this was happening. It was a smart play for people saying, oh, terrible kick. That was by design. Like, shut up. But to end it on a positive note, outstanding. Kudos to Vanderbilt. Kudos to Sarah Fuller. Kudos to the entire sports world. And any girl who ever dreams about playing football, just a remarkable step forward from Sarah Fuller of Vanderbilt yesterday. And now to the rest of the show.